Subtitles made by Dimatorzok. Subtitles made by Dimatorzok.
The first shot killed Ella Kook, a 19-year-old beauty and vice chair of the University of Rhode Island Republican Club. The second killed a recent immigrant from Uzbekistan who was studying to become a neurosurgeon. The killer cold-bloodedly fired 9 more shots and wounded 9 more students. He shot at point-blank range, then he left and disappeared.
On December 13 at 4:05 p.m., an armed masked man entered classroom 166 in the Bruce and Hawley Engineering Building, a lecture hall with 186 seats on the first floor. 21 students were present at Professor Rachel Fridberg's economics consultation. Before the final, the shooter didn't say a word. He just started pulling the trigger.
All these shots are only from behind. We never see his face anywhere, or the university doesn't provide any footage where his face is visible. We can say that he is a fair-skinned young man who is presumably the killer. Why, after 4, almost 5 days have passed, is it still only presumed, and why are all mentions of the pro-Palestinian stance of the students and administration of Brown University, one of the Ivy League universities, being urgently erased from the university's website? I would clarify, it's not even pro-Palestinian, but anti-Semitic. We will find all this out in the next 20 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, we will also answer a number of questions about why the university president is carefully trying not to answer any questions, pretending to be clueless, and why the name of one particular student is being erased from all social networks.
Brown University is one of the most liberal educational institutions in the country, and the president of Brown is clearly hiding something. We will show you this.
But first, the mayor of the city where all this happened.
At the moment, we have no new information to share about the investigation. It is ongoing. There is no reason to believe that we have encountered any obstacles except to say that we are doing what we know how to do, in close cooperation with our law enforcement partners, to ensure an adequate, thorough, and comprehensive investigation of this situation.
And when we are ready to make an announcement, we will do so. We know that information is circulating, but we will not disclose anything that could compromise our investigation or any future prosecution.
He talked and talked and talked, but didn't say anything. Actually, they really do have a lot to say, but they're keeping quiet, and we'll talk about that later. And here is the rector, Christine Paxton, whom journalists are asking, why are you refusing to provide information? Within 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, you will find out where the killers are. Where the killers most like to plan mass shootings.
President, with respect, 6 hours after the shooting, you said you didn't know what happened in the classroom. How is that possible? They were taking a test, they were getting together for a club. I don't know. After 6 hours, you're the president, and, I don't know.
Well, that's concerning. Just like the CIA stayed silent even after the students were shot, I also know nothing after 4 or 5 days. After that, the police report to the mayor and don't want to say what the killer shouted at the students. What exactly did he shout? But the 2 wounded students are telling the story.
The mayor announced cooperation between our federal partners and various state municipalities.
What do you think they're hiding? Maybe the shooter shouted, "Free Palestine" or "Allahu Akbar." You'll all find out soon. Here he is, the one they can't catch in a small town, even though they have this footage.
What you're about to see is video footage from the building where this incident actually happened at 184 Hope Street. In this footage, we believe the suspect is captured leaving the area, walking down Hope Street, and then turning right onto Waterman, heading toward the water.
But the mystery remains, and the biggest mystery is why he still hasn't been found. And you want to ask, are they even looking for him? Or maybe on the contrary, are they hiding him?
4 days, that's how much time has passed since an armed criminal opened fire at Brown University, killing 2 students and injuring 9 more. And we still don't have a single suspect in custody, but here's what we do have. An Ivy League university removing all information about a Palestinian student activist from its website, blocking journalists who ask questions. And a police department that seems more interested in managing narratives than in making arrests.
They're scrubbing the website of any mention of a specific student. A Palestinian activist who has disappeared somewhere. No one knows who fired the shot, but for some reason his name is disappearing from everywhere.
They still have to establish the motive. They still have to explain why the person who was watching the area for 6 hours didn't leave any forensic evidence. But now we have breaking news that seems to take this institutional panic to a whole new level. While the FBI combed Providence, social media noticed something odd. A freshman student named Mustafa Karabuj.
Comparing with the footage of the suspect, the killer has light skin, is young, stocky, studies at the university, and disappeared.
Completely. His personal profile vanished from Brown's website, along with every mention, article, and trace of him. According to available reports, Karabuj is a third-generation Palestinian refugee from Lebanon who studies international relations and anthropology with a special focus on the Middle East. His now deleted profile described him as a community organizer who studied at the United World College Maastricht on a scholarship and financial aid, helped with community development initiatives, and worked with principles of social change. A few hours after the shooting, his digital footprint was systematically erased.
While the rector said she didn't know anything anywhere, nor what was happening in the room where the shooting took place, at the very same time by someone's order, most likely her own. University staff were erasing any information about the Palestinian activist, whom the police supposedly don't suspect, but who has disappeared and is being taken off all social platforms. What do you think? Is it probably just a coincidence? Probably, right?
When the conservative account XN Walkiness posted a screenshot asking why Brown University blocked him, they didn't respond, they just blocked. When Laura Loomer claimed she found a YouTube account with the same name where Islamic videos about electronic devices were posted, the number of questions increased sharply, and when the incredibly incompetent president of Brown University was asked about all this, she gave an equally incompetent answer.
I suppose that some web pages for students or faculty were deleted. This is a response to outside threats to a community member.
We are working very closely with law enforcement to provide them with all the internal information about Brown that they need to conduct this investigation. This is their investigation. They are professionals, so we provide the information. We do not verify it. As for them, I don't know anything about the removal of web pages being part of this. This is the first I've heard of it.
She doesn't know anything about what everyone is talking and writing about. She probably isn't interested at all in what's going on, and she doesn't care about the opinion of the press, the opinion of parents, students, just the residents of the city or the whole country. By the way, as she said, it's not her business, it's the police's business to be continued. So what is her business then? The Emirates' foreign minister immediately comes to mind, who clearly explained the problem.
The day will come when we will see many more radicals, extremists, and terrorists coming from Europe because of the lack of,
while making decisions aiming to be politically correct, or assuming that they know the Middle East very well, that they are well acquainted with Islam, and that they understand other peoples much better than we do.
And I apologize, but that's just pure ignorance.
Well, it couldn't be any clearer or simpler. But the liberal part of America loves the idea of free Muslims, free from the oppression of capitalists, imperialists, basically colonizers. They don't care what these poor people robbed by you and me do to us. Liberals live in some other probably cloud cuckoo world where nothing exists except their illusory pink castles in the air. There's definitely no reality there. Reality. Please don't stain my slobbery dreams, but I, ladies and gentlemen, refuse to take part in their sacred suicide. Put yourselves on the altar, but as for me, my friends, my family, and my loved ones, please leave us out of it. By the way, Elon Musk thinks exactly the same way.
That's what Elon Musk means when he says that we are infected with suicidal empathy. Your city and school are under attack by a terrorist, yet officials remain defensive, refusing to admit he shouted that it's an elementary school or similar. They did the same thing with the Nashville Shooters Manifesto, refusing to release it last year.
They probably think that we're going to go kill everyone who prays to Allah, but at the same time, they want the people to hate us and you. And of course, make America great again and Trump, the terrible, horrible, awful Trump, and go kill yourself. They actively incite unstable, nervous, transgender people and homosexuals against us, but they protect Muslims from us. Naturally, is it clear to you whom they hate more, or is it clear to you whom they hate and whom they don't?
There are still questions about why there was a purge, why there was a blockade.
Why, when the killer is still at large, an Ivy League institution is directing resources to deleting records instead of demanding transparency? Well, as it turns out, the more we learn, the more we find that these questions reveal a certain pattern, a very troubling pattern, at the very center of which is Brown University.
On the weapon or clothing that would shed light on his motive? Many people, these people wear clothing with slogans like Free Palestine. Could that have been the reason? Was it on his shirt? Who knows? I don't know. But there's no prosecutorial reason to withhold what he shouted in the classroom or not publish the suspect's photo. It's strange because they have the perpetrator in custody. Users refer to a 2021 study showing that there are about 800 surveillance cameras across the Brown University campus. That 2021 report calls Brown University a surveillance state. The tuition for 1 year at Brown is about $70,000. They have an $8 billion endowment, and yet they don't have a single camera, not a single surveillance camera that captured the shooter inside the building. It's just unbelievable.
Someone said, and I want to make sure we're reporting this correctly, that he may have left the building, and I'm wondering how he got access to the building, and if there's any video from inside the building. Is there any video from inside the building?
I don't have an answer as to whether there's any video in that building where he was captured.
You and I know that the American elites are getting closer and closer to the views of Hamas. The Palestinians, if you remember, were jumping for joy when the Twin Towers fell, and along with them, 3,000 of our fellow citizens died. And American intellectuals were drinking rosé champagne when Hamas killed 1,200 Jews in Israel. And as you remember, he took a hostage. Naturally, now they are outraged. Outraged. You know why? Because the Jews dare to respond. To stand up and swear. To destroy Hamas, which, by the way, has sworn to drown Israel in blood, is considered normal. But Jews who want to defend themselves, that's not acceptable.
The Ivy League is no longer a guarantee of moral seriousness or intellectual merit. In many cases, it has become a branded cover for radicalism masquerading as science. Let's be honest, the officials at Brown University are covering up what happened.
But the State Attorney General Levy is still talking about the motive. He says, while we don't know, we have no idea why he opened fire.
The investigation has no information about the motive. Zero. There's nothing about it, even if you take it at face value. The fact that one or two witnesses might have said something about what was said is fine, but there are many witnesses who say that nothing was said.
So there are 2 wounded witnesses who say, "We heard him shouting," while the others didn't hear anything. That's why Prosecutor General says, well, how do we know? And here's what the former FBI investigator says.
The lack of surveillance footage on campus and the excuse that it's an old building, and both the Prosecutor General and the Providence Police Chief stated, "We don't have surveillance," that's absolutely inexcusable. I believe that the priority of Brown University was not the safety of their students. They were more focused on things like diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And this turned into a disaster that led to the deaths of 2 students.
The university president and state authorities were hiring people for the police, security, the city hall in general, the university itself, and various state departments and divisions. Not people with experience and abilities, but those who, yes, have darker skin, certain sexual preferences, are, excuse me, crooked, and have specific political affiliations. Pro-Muslim, anti-Semitic, anti-Trump, those were the most important things. That's why the access system in the building wasn't working that day. They told us it wasn't working. There were no surveillance cameras because the building was old, so they couldn't install cameras, and there was no security. And on that particular day, there was no one with a weapon who could protect the students and teachers. The situation in Australia is the same as in other schools, in other places, in synagogues, in movie theaters. Criminologists say that over 90% of mass public killings happen in places where private individuals are forbidden to carry weapons. On December 29, 2019, in a church in the city of White Settlement, Texas, a man opened fire on parishioners and killed 2 people. He didn't have time to continue shooting. 71-year-old Jack Wilson drew his pistol and fired 3 shots at him. On July 17, 2022, at the Greenwood Mall in Indiana, a man with 2 rifles and a pistol entered the food court and started shooting, killing 3 people. Within 15 seconds, 22-year-old Ilyasha Dickin drew his pistol and, from a distance of 40 meters, took down the shooter with his very first shot. In both cases, if there hadn't been someone with a gun, there would have been many more victims, the police said. An analysis by the Center for Crime Prevention showed that in places where carrying firearms is allowed, citizens stop between 50 and 52% of attacks, and the number of fatalities drops by 49%, compared to situations when a shooter is confronted by security personnel or responding police officers, or when there is no one present at all. Among armed citizens, fatalities are rare. Some say that less than 1% among security and police who arrive at the crime scene later, naturally the fatality rate is 16–17%. We started with the fact that Brown University in Rhode Island is doing everything it can to hide something. Maybe they're hiding their incompetence, their lack of preparedness, the fact that they weren't protecting students but didn't care about anything except fighting dissent. Or maybe they're hiding the fact that Ella Cuck's murder was planned. She was the most prominent Make America Great Again leader on campus at the university, and people said she was somewhat reminiscent of Charlie Kirk. Or maybe the rector is part of the same anti-Semitic, anti-Israeli, anti-American cell as the elusive killer whose name no one knows, but all mentions of him are being erased from the university website and social media. In the 8 years of Obama and then Biden, well, let's call it Obama 3S, the country was brought to a state of hatred, intolerance, practically a powder keg. And now we are reaping the consequences, or rather, we are not just starting, we are continuing to reap the consequences with the deaths of young, active, bright people who are hated the most precisely because they are bright. This story, ladies and gentlemen, needs to be told to everyone who can still be saved. That's all for now until next time.